Amara is only 10 years old, but she carries years of trials within her. The street of Dakar is her domain, her daily life, and she learned, from a very young age, to decipher the signs of danger, to understand the rhythms of the city, to protect herself from the indifference and violence of the world. Dakar, vibrant with life, is a city that contrasts violently between the sparkling luxury of its avenues lined with palaces and the darkness of the alleys where children like Amara fight for a simple pittance of bread. The city's modern buildings rise like giants of steel and glass, but on the ground, destitute children, exhausted women and dejected men wander in unspeakable poverty. Amara has only known the absence of a stable family. His father, a former Dakar port worker, disappeared in a work accident years ago, while loading containers on the docks. Fate, like a persistent shadow, took away the only father figure she had ever known. Her mother, a gentle and devoted woman, battled illness, but she did not survive the harshness of life. Amara remembers his loving arms and comforting stories, but those memories slowly fade into the mist of oblivion. She had to grow up alone, in a merciless world where instinct and resourcefulness are essential qualities for survival. Since the death of her mother, Amara lives from one day to the next. Every morning, she wakes up in one of the many alleys where street children take shelter, among piles of boxes, leftover food and pieces of worn fabric. These children are his family, but they are not always reliable, each fighting for their own survival. Solidarity is there, but fragile. It's all about quick moments of sharing, small victories and big losses. Amara doesn't know the idea of tomorrow. She doesn't make long-term plans. His days consist of finding something to eat, avoiding the dangers of police officers and indifferent adults, and protecting himself from the temptations of the street. Her eyes, often filled with a light full of inaccessible dreams, reveal a maturity that far exceeds her age. But beneath this shell, there is also a generous heart, ready to offer what it can. She never asks for help, but gives it generously. Amara is known for her little attentions to those who share the same suffering. Every day, she sells homemade sweets that she prepares on street corners with ingredients found here and there. She cleans car windows in traffic jams, offering her smile to busy drivers, earning a few coins to survive. But his heart is not limited to this daily survival. She dreams of a better life, a dream that seems so distant that she doesn't know how it could come true. One particularly hot afternoon, as Amara seeks shelter under a makeshift roof outside the Sandaga market, a dramatic scene catches her attention.
A luxury black car, a Rolls-Royce, suddenly loses control.
With a shattering noise, she hit a concrete post and ended up in a ditch. The smell of gasoline mixes with that of the oppressive heat. A cry of pain breaks the air, but immediately, a silence heavy with tension sets in, that of shock and uncertainty. The passers-by, as if frozen, remain at a distance. Some become afraid, others hesitate, and a small group begins to move away. But Amara, without the slightest hesitation, throws herself into action. It's as if, suddenly, his whole being wakes up. She doesn't think. She doesn't have time. With a survival instinct deeply rooted in her, she runs towards the car. Without fear, perhaps, she opens the door, slips inside, and discovers a man struggling against the impact of the accident. His face is pale, marked by pain. His clothes are those of a wealthy businessman, a rumpled white shirt, crisp black shoes. But what shocks Amara is not the man's wealth, but his vulnerability, his distress. She slips between the steering wheel and the seat, observes that it is stuck, her arm caught under the safety mechanism. She doesn't know how she does it, but she acts quickly, precisely, as if years of fighting in the streets had prepared her for this kind of moment. Her hands, small but surprisingly agile, manipulate the steering wheel elements with a dexterity she didn't know she possessed. With a strength that her size does not suggest, she manages to free the man. He is weak, but still conscious. She asks him to hold on to her. While helping him out, she feels a sharp pain in her left hand, a deep cut, but the adrenaline pushes her to ignore the pain. With a last effort, she pushes the man out of the car, just before the engine explodes in a spray of flames. They fall to the ground together, exhausted but alive. Amara, despite the pain, only feels a sense of pride. She saved a life. But she doesn't know it yet. Her own destiny has just changed forever. Help arrives shortly after, amazed by the heroism of a little street girl. Amara expects nothing, seeks no thanks. There she is, drenched in sweat, her arms and face scratched, but her eyes shine with a purity found only in those who have not yet been corrupted by the cruelty of the world. The man she saved, a billionaire named Victor Lemoyne, looks at her with eyes full of gratitude and admiration. His first words, when he finally comes to his senses, are simple, but full of gratitude. "How can I thank you, little one?" She looks at him, with this unalterable innocence that has survived everything, and calmly responds, "You have nothing to thank me for. I just wanted to help you." She never looked for a reward. She never wanted to be seen as a hero. Her gesture is a simple reflection of who she is, a child of the heart, guided by deep kindness. Victor, moved beyond words, takes her in his arms. He knows that, even in this tragic accident, he was given more than just a chance of survival. He crossed paths with the one who will turn his life upside down and give meaning to his existence.
You changed my life. I changed yours. Amara.
It is the beginning of a story that links their destinies inextricably.
For Victor, a man who had lost all taste for life, Amara represents innocence, light, and redemption.
And for Amara, this moment will mark the end of her street life, but also the beginning of a journey towards a future that she would never have dared to imagine. Victor, deeply upset by Amara's heroic act, decides that he cannot let her return to the streets. He takes her under his wing and offers her much more than a roof. He offers him security and hope for a different life. Everything in her lavish home seems both strange and fascinating to Amara. The luxury that surrounds her, the immense spaces, the precious objects, remind her of the world that she has always observed from a distance, without ever daring to dream of belonging to it. She is immersed in a completely new universe, where the beauty of the place is measured by the coldness of the walls. The big house, too big for her, also seems to be a trap, a place where she must fight against her old demons, her habits formed on the street. The smell of delicious food, Victor's warm welcome, it all seems unreal to him, almost too good to be true. Amara, although intrigued by Victor's generous offer, remains on her guard. She learned to distrust people in her homeless life. Friendship and love can often turn into betrayal on the street, and she is not ready to forget this harsh reality. But Victor's patience, his gentleness and his respectful way of treating her end up breaking down the walls she has built around herself. Little by little, she realizes that he is not trying to dominate her, nor to impose on her a world that she does not understand. He looks at her, not as a street girl, but as a young person full of potential. Despite her doubts, she finally agrees to leave the streets, but she keeps part of her soul there, in the heat of the alleys, the echo of voices raised in poor neighborhoods, and the fight for every penny. In Victor's house, Amara begins to live a new life, but the transition is not easy. The first days are filled with confusion and loneliness. She attended a private school where, surprisingly, she quickly caught up. His thirst for knowledge is insatiable. She reads with intense concentration, absorbing everything she can, because she knows that education is the key that can open all doors. It was at school that she learned to write, but also to express ideas and opinions, something she never thought possible. Victor, for his part, becomes his guide. He taught him business, but also philosophy and politics, subjects that he mastered and which shaped him as a business magnate. Together, they spend hours discussing society, human values, past mistakes, and how we can repair the world. Victor finds in Amara a wisdom that he has never encountered in anyone else. It is as if, through his eyes, he rediscovered a world he had lost sight of, that of simple dreams, deep human aspirations and immutable principles. Over the months, their relationship goes beyond that of a mentor and his student. They truly become a family. He is a father figure for Amara, protective and loving. She, for her part, becomes a constant source of motivation for him, a beacon that reminds him of what is truly important in life. Amara's youth, her enthusiasm and her sincerity breathe new life into Victor's life, long locked in the shackles of work and luxury. She reminds him that the beauty of life is not found in material goods, but in human experiences and the ability to help others. But even in this luxurious world, Amara struggles to find her place. She is aware of the enormous gap between her past and this present. Although she is surrounded by precious objects, elegant clothes, and a refined education, her heart remains attached to the street, to the solidarity of street children, and to the social inequalities that still hit her community hard. She suffers from this divide between her former lives and those of others. Each time she meets someone from her past, she feels a kind of guilt, as if she were betraying her roots. But she finds the strength to channel this pain to work for others. It is then that tensions begin to appear in Victor's life. The business he inherited from his father, a thriving empire he thought would be indestructible, begins to falter. He faces a series of moral dilemmas: questionable investments, unethical business practices, and increasing pressure from his associates to make risky choices to save his company. The weight of inheritance weighs heavily on him. The wealth he possesses, acquired at the cost of numerous compromises, seems more and more useless in the face of the trials he faces. His long hours spent sorting out the company's affairs do not appease him. On the contrary, the man he has become is not the man he dreamed of being. One day, a former associate of his father, a relentless and cunning man, shows up at his house with a proposition. Risky investments, but promising extraordinary returns, capable of restoring the financial situation of the company. It is then that Amara, who has been observing the entire scene in silence, speaks, her eyes shining with wisdom.
Money don't fix what's broken.
We must rebuild, not erase, she told him calmly, but with a force that echoed in Victor's soul.
These words hit Victor like a bolt from the blue.
He realizes that he cannot continue to look for superficial solutions to mask the real problems. Inspired by Amara's wisdom, he decides not to follow the path his associate suggested. He chooses to review his company, to restructure it based on more human and ethical values, without sacrificing his principles for easy money. Together, Amara and Victor begin a journey that leads them to redefine what it means to succeed. Their collaboration becomes an indomitable force, based on honesty, humility, and justice. Over the years, Amara becomes an educated, strong, and determined woman. She takes charge of social projects, gets involved in the fight for the education of street children, and is actively involved in reducing social inequalities. Her influence grew, and she became a leading figure, respected by all, but always humble. She never forgets where she comes from and fights for those who were not as lucky as she was. His story inspires thousands of people, young people and adults, from disadvantaged backgrounds, but also those seeking to understand what elevation truly means. It proves that, even when you come from nothing, you can change your life while remaining true to yourself and your principles. As for Victor, he learns that true wealth does not lie in money, but in human connections, in the way we touch the lives of others. He rediscovers a deep meaning to his existence thanks to Amara. Together they form a family built on love, redemption, and a deep understanding of true human values. Amara is no longer that little street girl. She became a strong woman, who not only saved a man's life, but who gave meaning to her own life and that of many others.